Hello and welcome back to Brimwood Farm and the garden. I can't quite believe that it's September and the season is kind of moving towards its end. So I've already pulled up quite a few things. So this was where the onions were. So the onions have all been harvested. I've actually put in a few kale plants now and they'll sit here and grow on, hopefully for the winter. The garlic is now pulled and that was along this bed. And actually before I pulled the garlic, I had interplanted it with some carrots until I ran out of carrot seed. So there is a small patch of carrots here. Then there is a small patch of beets here. They're just starting to come on. They might have time to grow. Now, is early September too early to be putting in your onion sets? Yes, but I missed my wholesale order last year, so when I went to buy, instead of being able to buy just a couple hundred, 100 onion sets, I had to buy a 35 kilogram bag, which left me with 1,000 or so onions. And I didn't need that many onions, so I put the onion sets away and I found them the other day and they had all started to go mouldy and gross. So I was like, well, I don't want to throw them out. If I can use them, then let's try and use them. So I actually came down and I have put in an entire half bed of these onion sets. I can't believe how weedy it has got already. I guess it's warm and we've started to have more rain because it's September, and so obviously the soil is warm, so all these weed seeds are coming up. But you can also see all these onion sets are starting to come up. Now this may not work. They may grow on too fast. So that they're bigger plants, and then when the winter hits, because they're bigger plants, they're more susceptible to getting frosted off, and so they may fail. What I'm hoping is, as the hours of sunlight and daylight are now diminishing, they will grow slightly slower. They won't grow too fast, so they won't then become more vulnerable to getting frosted, and actually I'll have managed to save all of our excess onion crop, and I might get some really early onions next year. We'll see. It's an experiment. But one thing that I will not be doing next year is growing green lettuces. So lettuces have been amazing this year. They've grown really well and they're a great crop on the farm that I sell at farmers markets and in my veg bags. And I generally grow one variety in two colours, so salad bowl red and salad bowl green. Now these ones, as you can see, have shot to seed. I've actually still been using the red ones, because actually what you can do is you can snap them off down there and you just run your hand along these leaves and pull them all off, and actually you can see that's exactly what I've done in these places. So through the majority of the lettuce's life, you can just rip off the bottom leaves and you turn them into sort of little tree trunks, but if they shoot off and get like this, then again, as I say, you can just snap them off at the bottom, run your hand down, that all comes off, and you can use it. And actually, it's still edible. You know, in the early days when I was doing lettuces, I was thinking, no, it's gone to seed, it's not going to be tasty, it's going to be quite bitter. But actually, I find with this red salad bowl, the salad bowl red variety, it's fine. However, as you saw from those red leaves, they are perfect still. You can happily harvest all of these, not a problem, good to go. With the green, and I don't know whether it's just because where I am growing, whether it's a bit too humid, whether it's just my site, but on first hand you go, oh nice, green lettuces, and then you start to harvest and you look at the leaves closer and they're so blemished. They start to get bits of rust on them, like that, and you just can't, like, look at this one. So on the surface, oh, it's fine, and then you look a bit closer, you can't put that in a salad bag, it's awful. And I find that with all my green lettuces. So I've grown loads of green lettuces this year, and I can say that the percentage of green lettuces that have gone into veg bags is probably about 5%. The rest has gone to the pigs. And of course the pigs love it, but it's pointless growing a crop that you can't actually harvest and use. So no more green lettuces. I'm only going to do red, I think, because the red ones are the ones I've got more over here. Again, the red, they've shot to seed, but again, I can pinch out the tops. I can still use all these salad leaves. They're perfectly edible. Gosh, look at these ones down here. They've gone mad. And I don't know whether putting a net over them may have helped. At first glance, they look all right, and then you go in closer and they're covered in rust. So I'd be pretty interested to hear from you, actually, if you find a similar thing, and let me know where in the world you are. I want to know if this is kind of a UK thing, a southeast UK thing, or it happens all across the UK, or you know, if you're in America, does the same happen there? Just really useful to know. But from my personal experience, that's what's happened. So no more green lettuce. The beets have not been largely successful this year, but I actually put that down to sheep, because the sheep would come in and see all these lovely leaves and pull them out of the ground, and so I'd end up with beets that kind of growing and trying to hang on. I mean, look, that's never going to grow, is it? It's only just in the thing. So again, next year I will do better. What has done really well are the turnips. I only actually sowed this turnip bed once. It's been really closely sewn together, but it's thrived, and I've managed to get multiple picks off it because I close sewed it, and then I just tear out the big ones, as I've said before. Been really happy. The purple top Milan has done better than the snowball. The purple top Milan, when it was multi-sown, seemed to cope with that better. The snowball, I would get one kind of big woody looking thing, and then the rest would not look great. But maybe next year I can sow the snowball slightly further apart and see if that helps. Spring onions have been fantastic. They have become a staple of the CSA bag. These are probably only a month old, and you can see the soil is still warm enough. It's bringing them on quickly. I think the majority of my early season ones are gone. This is probably one that's left over. But also this was literally weeded a couple of days ago, and you can see that with this warm weather, all of these weed seeds are coming up already. So I am constantly fighting, staying on top of the weeds. Although I've done so much better this year, I'm proud of myself. And obviously the more weed seeds I keep out of the garden, the better it'll get year on year. The chard again has suffered, but that's because of sheep. But you can see the warmth means that it has suddenly started to creep on again, which is great. And then these are the patty pans and the courgettes. Been a bit of a funny year for those, I have to be honest. I've had enough to keep me going, but I have not had a glut. I'm just looking now. There are some. I've missed this one, obviously. So there still are some. I think this is Safari because it's striped. This is your bog standard green one. Another one here. And I'm just looking if there's any patty pans. There's another Safari. Oh, there's a few patty pans here. Oh, that's quite nice. There's a big one. Oh, blimey. That needs picking. But as we all know, it's been a funny growing year. But I've had enough to fulfill my CSAs and enough to take a few to farmers markets. So I'm not going to moan. I'm not going to moan about it. The cow has been hammered by everything this year. These are the slightly older plants, which have been in all season. And then obviously I showed you those smaller transplants that I put in literally just a few days ago. And I have started sowing ready for autumn. So these are trays of autumny, wintry growing stuff. I would normally have done it in the polytunnel, but at this time of year it's too hot. They would have just burnt to a crisp. So these were only sown a couple of days ago, which is why we've got the Mizunas coming up already, the Mizunas and the mustard. So this is Mizuna, this is a red mustard. This is another Mizuna. These are flowers, so there's some Hesperus and some Sweet Williams and some Honesty, and then this is Hesperus. The first lettuce is coming up, and then I have a little bit of PSB, so purple spirit and broccoli, and some chard. And the idea with the lettuce and the Mizuna in particular will be that it won't be planted into the garden. It's going to get planted into the polytunnel. So over the next couple of months with warmth, it will start to come on, and then it will sit there static for those winter months, and I will be able to harvest it next year when it's got a little bit of leaf on it and it's grown on those as the days then start to get longer again and the warmth, and it whizzes away. Also with the mustard and Mizuna, I can't grow it outside in the summer because it gets hammered by flea beetle. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to pop it into the polytunnel and it won't get absolutely ruined. So this is the state of the poly. I have just started to weed out some of the spaces for that Mizuna and mustard to go into. Have I managed to keep it pristine? No, of course not, but I'm taking the heat off myself because I'm doing a lot here on the farm and I'm doing it all by myself. So if I don't get the polytunnel fully weeded, it's no deal breaker. Don't feel bad about it. Just be zen, be chill, work on it better next year. And I think all of you that have watched this channel for a few years can see that the garden this year has been better. It's been more kept, it's been weeded better, I've kept on top of stuff. So I'm really actually quite pleased with myself. Not so pleased with myself about the courgettes. The first year I had courgettes was amazing because I accidentally thought they were pumpkins. I put them outside and they thrived. This year, not so good. These are like my biggest plants. Despite feeding them, giving them fresh soil, biggest plants. Ridiculous. We have got, obviously, a few little cucumbers. There's a lovely little lemon cucumber over there. I mean, look at this plant. What is the point of you, dude? You haven't thrived. You're even worse. There's a decent cucumber there. And then some weird ass cucumbers. But as with everything, I'm not going to moan. There are some. And I have had enough to fill veg boxes this year, so in terms of variety of crops. So if cucumbers never make it into veg boxes and they're just for a home harvest, it's fine, totally fine. Peppers have done all right. Actually, I've been very, very happy with my peppers, my sweet peppers this year. They've all kind of averaged this size. Not massive harvests, but I think that's me forgetting to feed them. But again, I'm happy. And then aubergine wise has been awful. I literally have about 40 plants and I have one aubergine. Here it is. And I don't know whether it's lack of feeding, lack of water, lack of pollination, but I've started coming in and trying to hand pollinate the flowers. And since I did that, that's when this one aubergine appeared. So possibly it's a pollination thing. I do think the flowers are a bit weird. When you wiggle most flowers, especially tomatoes and things, you get to see the pollen. The pollen comes off. On these aubergines, the pollen doesn't seem to come off at all. And also I find that if you wiggle it too hard, the stamen then comes totally off. So I don't know whether it's the type of aubergine. I don't know whether it's that's just aubergines. But again, I haven't required them to put into veg boxes. It would have been lovely to have them to put into veg boxes, but it's not been a massive requirement. So I'll just persevere and try again next year and see how we do. So I'm pretty happy this year with how the garden has gone. It definitely makes a massive difference being on site, because rather than constantly rushing to try and get everything done and feeling that the workload is unbearable, I've actually had time to potter, and pottering allows you the time to take information in and trial things and stop and think about things and kind of problem solve. Whereas when you're rushing around trying to get everything done because you don't live on site, so there's all the job lists you've got to go through, it doesn't give you that. It doesn't, you know, give you any breathing space. Whereas now, as I say, I have time to potter around and to make sure I've watered everything. And if something's not working, if a crop isn't working properly, have a time to think about it, read into it, try a few different things, and it's upped the growing game intensely. We are at the flower garden. The flower garden has suffered a little bit this year, I must admit. Last year the flowers thrived and the veg didn't. This year the veg done a lot better and the flowers haven't. Next year maybe both will. But we do have the dahlias which are doing lovely, and these are cactus dahlia which are grown from seed. So all of these were started by seed earlier this year, and you get a fantastic crop. And for someone like me who's not a specialist flower grower, so I'm not growing special varieties, I just want flowers. I don't need to worry about colours or shapes. I just want dahlia flowers. So buying a mixed bag of seed, dahlia cactus seed, is great for me. You might remember earlier in the season I transplanted the statice and it looked bloody awful. Well, look, I had faith that it would recover, and it has, and it's lovely and it's beautiful, and I've been picking loads and it's still standing up tons and tons of shoots. There are some more dahlias down here. These were a second sowing of dahlias and they are just starting to come into flower. In fact, this is the first flower of these batch, which something is lovingly nibbled. Look, thanks whoever that was. And then, so we have the dahlias, we have the statice, we have the cornflowers which are going over, we have the cosmos which are also going over. I also need to come and deadhead because look at the number of deadheads on these, although that I think is actually very, very pretty. But we had some massive rampant wind the other day and it flattened a lot of stuff, and the cosmos did not like it. You can see down here it blew over several plants. One thing I'm going to try with the cosmos is you can cut cosmos like this, where it's really fluffy, and it actually sets out root really, really easily. So I'm going to see if I can root some and if I can overwinter some. Now I probably won't because cosmos like the heat, but I just thought, let's give it a go. Let's have a little test. Let me root some cuttings. I'll keep them inside and maybe they will take off again and I'll have some early cosmos, because I do find with cosmos actually you don't really get any until June, July. Well, actually July, August for me is when they really go rampant. So if I've got some cuttings that have been sheltered all winter and take off a bit early, great. One thing that's also done really well finally is the eryngium. I mean, look at these, look at this. Look at this colour. I don't even know if the camera picks it up that well, but look at it. Now a lot of these have not been useful for bouquets because the sheep got in and pruned them right down, and then so what I got was, instead of lots of long stalks with the seed heads on the top, I got lots of bushy stalks where, you know, there's barely any stem on that. The stems here, look, if I take that off, that's not really usable. Whereas some of the ones that are coming up now, they've got a long stem on them, and then the flowers, seed heads on the top, a lot more usable. But I will cut these and I will dry them. The only thing I'm finding is when you dry them, they start to lose the colour, which is a bit sad because it's amazing colour. And then I guess the only other thing I've got really now are a few snapdragons. They're starting to go over and they're starting to get some rust. I found the yellow ones in particular get rust on the flowers. There's a little bit of yarrow left, but not really anything that I can use. I'm just kind of leaving that on at the moment. And then this has just, the name of which has just completely gone out of my mind, but I have been using this in some bouquets too.